The Montreal Canadiens just made hockey history. After clinching a playoff spot sealed by an empty netter from Jake Evans, there was one specific thing about the youth of this Montreal Canadiens team that has never happened in NHL history. We had to talk about that, plus some more context on that front, but we also have to talk about the players that have exceeded expectations this year and just what that means in terms of importance for the Habs going forward, and even another look at the standings from a certain point in the season to now and just how far we've come. There is so much that happened this season that we got to break it all down on this episode of Habs Digest. Before we get into the video though, just a massive thank you for hitting 20,000 subscribers. I know we had the community post. Just wanted to take a moment to thank every single one of you. Yes, you, for watching these videos. Jesse, let's jump into it. And we got to start here with a little look at the standings at a certain point in the season, because back on December 1st, that's when these standings were accurate. These standings. We were 31st in the NHL. Now, again, it's close at that point, only 24 games played. Like, a lot of teams have around the same amount of points, but we were only ahead of Chicago. Fast forward to today, locking down a playoff spot, 16th overall in the NHL with 91 points. You know, December 1st was 2 days before Patrik Laine's debut, Jesse, and it was 19 days before Alex Carrier made his debut for Montreal, so things did change from then. But how insane is it to you that Montreal went on that kind of run in the second half, especially after the Four Nations?
I mean, we came from the bottom, and we're not all the way at the top yet, but that's really the goal for this Montreal Canadiens team. And as we know, like, this beginning of the season was a little bit kind of rough, you know, for us there. Obviously, losing Patrik Laine kind of right before the regular season. Just the bad vibes were there. We were so bad, Josh. We were even worse than the Nashville Predators, who have been terrible this year, just to let you guys know how bad it was. But I mean, despite all of this, the writing was kind of on the wall where this team believed in themselves. They started getting a little bit of support, and then they reminded themselves, like, wait, we lost a lot of really close games last year, even though we were finishing near the bottom. Like, we felt like we were competitive. Like, how do we change it this year to kind of get over that kind of finish line where we were kind of just ending before, not quite being able to finish out those games and those, you know, one goal game, crucial games. Again, this young team maturing, coming together as a team, like to have this phenomenal turnaround, which we hear about the Blues and all the loves they got for their turnaround. It's like, we need to show a little bit more love for this Montreal Canadiens and this turnaround, which we've really done, going from the bottom of the standings now into the Stanley Cup playoffs. I mean, we know what the Blues did on their run there. Obviously, you know, coming in hot to the playoffs does really matter. So it's all about really continuing it from here.
And I want to also point out, you know, for all the crap this team got, look, the nerves got to them when they had to clinch that playoff spot, but ending the season 7-1-2, I believe that's tied for second for the best record in the last 10 in the NHL. I could be wrong on that. Maybe you can check. I think the Leafs were like 8-2 or something like that, but still, that's crazy. It's absolutely crazy how good Montreal was for all the flack we got, Jesse. And, you know, like you said, that St. Louis run was crazy as well. To be fair, they're also doing some nutty things this year since hiring Jim Montgomery, but we're focusing on the Habs. And look, I don't even know where to start. I want you guys to pick the one player that you think maybe made the biggest difference to Montreal. Is it a guy like Laine? Because ever since he joined, the team just made that jump, right? That kind of depth goal scoring that we've needed for so long. Or, in my mind, Jesse, it's probably just our boy Nick Suzuki. We see him there at the top, the, I think, fourth highest producing player in the NHL behind, what was it? Kucherov, Robert Thomas, and like, I forget who the other one is, McKinnon or something like that, since Four Nations. One of the best players in the NHL this year. Like, and again, people forget he's incredible in his two-way play. Plus 19 this season. Make it bigger, read it, and weep, fans. That is insane. When you have other guys like Alex Newhook, minus 21, Laine, minus 14, Suzuki massively leading the team, plus 19. Incredible stats since the Four Nations. Jesse, I know we could talk about all these guys, but I mean, it has to start with Nick and that top line. Like, when they needed to step up, they stepped up the most.
Yeah, there's no way that we're making the playoffs without this heroic effort from Nick Suzuki. Again, he said that he needed to be better down the stretch. He urged Hughes to have faith in this team as the leader. And then he just comes through and delivers like a champ, which is absolutely unreal, all culminating to that big Sally last night after that big goal, just doing it in those big moments. But again, there's so many guys that really came together. Nick Suzuki, obviously a revelation. Like, it just gets me so excited, obviously for the playoffs, but feeling like we're just starting to see him hit his stride and what he can kind of do going forward. this confidence that it's going to give him, where he's changing the narrative now, where he now knows he's one of the elite players in the NHL. The opponents do, his teammates as well. Most importantly, I think it's huge. I have to go off the board as well, though, with like Martin St. Louis playing such a big part of this, that player development, having those relationships with Slav, taking him under his wing, like really as his personal project. And really, Slav was a huge reason for, again, in a must-win game last night, of coming through, right? And just like the season, not always pretty, but you know what? We find a way, and that's what the playoffs are all about. It's not about pretty hockey. It's about finding a way to get results, which the Montreal Canadiens did. Obviously, like, huge shout out to, like, obviously Carrier being such a big acquisition for us, kind of changing the feel of this team and getting more complementary pieces instead of feeling like all the guys back there were like offensive minded with Justin Barron. Finding that balance, which I think Gosse and Hughes again. Obviously, Dobech, Montembeault, Caufield just being like a revelation, kind of looking like a game breaker every single time. Like, we always believed about Caufield's ability, but until we kind of see him put up more kind of elite type of offensive numbers, it's still kind of a mystery. Now we know, and he's just starting off of such a hard, like, larger kind of benchmark, kind of going forward for him for this team. So, I mean, absolutely incredible. Just so many guys really coming together as a unit, I think, is the biggest thing. Again, playing, putting the team ahead of themselves is really that biggest key to success.
Yeah, and they really did that. Look, Caufield setting career highs in goals and points with a 70-point season. Nick Suzuki setting a career high in points. Slav setting a career high in points. And look, there's so many other guys we could mention, but you guys might be noticing there's a certain guy we didn't mention, and that's Hutson, because I wanted to tie him in to this next part of the video. And look, this is where the Habs made NHL history. Because if you guys didn't know, Montreal is the youngest team in NHL history to make the playoffs. That's not a joke. That is a fact. The next youngest team was the Leafs. I think it was 06-07, might have been 07-08. I think it was 06-07, who were just over 26 years of age on average. Montreal, 25.6 years of age. This is credit to 1909 Culture, who posted this. The stat is true. So I wanted to also bring up the fact, Jesse, of just, the youngest teams in the NHL this year, because that's been a common talking point for us, right? Here's a list of the youngest teams in the NHL this year. Now, you're wondering, Josh, why did you only take a picture of number 1 to number 14? That seems a little arbitrary. Well, the reason is, because you can see Montreal right there, 25.6. This comes from Elite Prospects, by the way. 25.6 years of age on average. The only team younger was the Buffalo Sabres. The reason I only went down to number 14 is because that's how far down this list you have to go to find another playoff team. Buffalo, Boston, Chicago, Philadelphia, San Jose, Anaheim, Vancouver, Utah, Columbus, Calgary, New York, and Seattle, none of them made the playoffs. The Carolina Hurricanes, who are 2.2 years older on average, are the next youngest team this year to make the playoffs. When we're talking about the future of the Montreal Canadiens, Jesse, we're talking about the impact of these guys into the future, past this year. Even guys like Demidov, who we haven't even talked about in this video, and how big an impact he's going to have. We got guys like Lane Hutson, not Slav, Lane Hutson, coming in and doing insane things as a rookie, helping this stat be true. It's a mind-blowing stat, but even more mind-blowing when you put it into context of the rest of the NHL.
For sure. And really, to be the youngest team to make the playoffs really says so much about this group ever, and also why we're just so proud of this team, why the positive vibes have been there. Because again, like, it's not just what this means for this season, but it's also going forward. Like, to be able to get that type of experience that they're going to get. Brendan Gallagher is the only player on this team right now to play in front of a full Bell Center in the playoffs. Now, for these guys, like, that was the motivation. It was you, the fans, Nick Suzuki. That's why he wanted to get there, to be able to play in front of you the game that he loves so much and feel that vibes, feel the energy, which we know is really going to help this team kind of going forward, right? So, like, this is absolutely unreal. Like, not just to be the youngest team, but then to have this turnaround where all the chips are stacked up against you, and to really still find a way to make it. This team really kind of coming together. And that's why there's some players that, we say, okay, I would have like this from this player. It's like, I'm a fan of everybody on this team right now. Like, not everybody had a perfect season, but there's no way that we're getting there without the effort from all these different guys of really making it happen. It needs to be said, like, the result of the team speaks for me larger than any individual performance from one player. If you were part of this Montreal Canadiens team to help make this happen, this is saying something very positive. Because, I mean, 9.9 out of 10 chances, given our situation, being so young, obviously being so far in the standings December 1st, like, there was looking like no chance of us being able to make the playoffs. So again, how this sets up for that experience that they're going to be getting, and also kind of to get into that contention window again of having that experience, that younger team. If we can get in there now without having that second line center kind of fully locked down, just imagine as we're kind of maturing and growing with this team as well to again completely execute Kent Hughes' vision all along, which is being competitive year in and year out for the Stanley Cup, not just a flash in the pan, but have that consistently for a solid window. We have to say once again that Kent Hughes' plan, from all apparent, aspects, is really coming perfectly to fruition right now.
It is. The sky is the limit. Like, I look at this team that no one would have predicted to make the playoffs. They came in, they were not only in the mix, but they were in the playoffs, right? We made the playoffs. It's done. We did it. With the second youngest team in the league, the youngest playoff team in NHL history, and we're still not at full strength. A lot of our guys are pre-prime right now. Naturally, that's what it means to be the youngest team, but like a lot of our guys are better players, are in their early 20s or teenage. Like Demidov's 19, Slav's 21, Hutson's like 20, 21 years old. Even Caufield and Suzuki are a few years away from their prime. Not to mention the guys we have coming up like Fowler, like Xhekaj, like David Reinbacher. There's so much coming in the future. Sky's the limit. I cannot explain how hyped we are. Playoffs are coming soon, starting, I believe it's Monday night, so stay tuned for that. We'll be here. We'll be talking to you after the game as well. Stay tuned for that, but that'll do it for this episode of Habs Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again for the 20K. It's a massive, massive achievement. I'm Josh Gosse, my co-host, Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.